All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're following breaking news out of Lynchburg today. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for WSLS 10 at 5.
Crews are on the scene of a train derailment in the area of 9th Street in Lynchburg. That has forced evacuations. There are no reports of injuries here, but let's take a look at video from the scene from a viewer. As you see, there were tons of flames, lots of smoke. We have team coverage of this developing story. We head first now to WSLS 10's Bree Jackson, who is live there on the scene. So, Bree, bring us up to speed. I understand crude oil is still leaking.
That's correct, Karen, and that's why crews have blocked off parts of Jefferson Street as well as Commerce Street. That's the scene that you're seeing behind me. The worry here is just in case that crude oil explodes and causes more damage in this area. Now, there's still a lot of uncertainty right now, but here are the facts. It happened close to the to the depot grill. The cars rolled toward the river and caught fire. Now, this was a CSX train, and about 12 to 14 cars derailed. 3 to 4 of them were open and leaked crude oil into the river. The Virginia Department of Environmental Quality is on the scene, and they plan to test the water. Now, 300 people had to be evacuated from this area, and some of them were transported to EC Glass High School. Now, it's still unclear when this area will be reopened. Police are writing down car makes, models, and license plates, and plan to use social media to let drivers know when they can return to this area. Now, from what we've been told so far, there have been no injuries reported, and crews are still working on a cause of this accident. I'm told that CSX officials are here on the scene, or at least headed to the scene, and plan to work with police as well as local officials to find out exactly what caused this accident. But there's still a lot of uncertainty right now, so we'll continue to keep you covered as more information becomes available. We're live in Lynchburg. Bree Jackson, WSLS 10.
We take you back live to Lynchburg, where approximately 15 cars derailed and 300 people have been evacuated from this area. No reports of injuries. We're talking about the 9th Street area of Lynchburg. We'll continue to keep you updated on this developing story.
And our team coverage of the train derailment in Lynchburg continues now with WSLS 10's Jenna Zibton. She joins us live from the scene after talking with witnesses. And Jenna, what additional information have you been able to find out? It sounds like these things just kind of rolled over.
Yes, and as you can see behind me, you can see that they just rolled off the tracks and into the river. We can see 3 in the river. A 4th looks like it is teetering on the edge. Roger Murphy was about a block and a half away when everything happened. Roger, step in here and tell me what happened and what did you see?
Well, we were inside the restaurant, and we heard some vibrations, and we all ran to the windows, and we saw the trains basically separate, and then these 3 started going into the river, and then all of a sudden a giant fireball came, and it just was the thunderous sounds, and the next thing we knew, the black smoke was coming up, and next thing we heard was the police called the hotel and told us all to evacuate, and that's what we've been doing since.
And you live actually right above in the building that you can see behind us. You've been told you cannot go to your apartment. What are you thinking now?
I'm thinking that I'm going to have to drive to Richmond tonight to my house where I live and make it the best I can. But I just hope that the river's not too bad with the pollution, because it looks like it's leaking into the river.
And from what you could you see the train tracks kind of buckle? We've heard from other people that the train tracks buckled from possibly all of the rain that this area has seen.
That's what everyone's saying, and as we're looking across the river, you could see that the train tracks are all buckled. So I think that's what happened.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
And we will bring you more live from Lynchburg coming up. Jenna Zibton, WSLS 10.
All right, thanks, Jenna. WSLS is investigating and found that the number of railroad tank cars carrying crude oil across the country has actually gone up significantly. Just how significantly? WSLS 10's Katie Love will join us live next with specific numbers in the wake of this Lynchburg train derailment, which we are now looking at the aftermath of live. As we've been telling you, crews are on the scene of a train derailment in the area of 9th Street in Lynchburg. It has forced hundreds of people to evacuate.
We want to show you a shot of the area right now. There are no injuries reported so far. Our team coverage of this developing story continues now with an investigative look by WSLS 10's reporter Katie Love. She's in our newsroom. And Katie, I know you've been doing a lot of research today on the hazardous material that was perhaps on this train. Crude oil is something that passes through our railroads every day. What did you find out in terms of the numbers and the frequency and how much of the stuff is moving through the area?
Well, looking through the archives of the National Transportation Safety Board, we found out just last week there was a big safety forum focused on the transportation of crude oil. Now, we learned the number of railroad tank cars carrying crude oil across the country has gone up significantly. In fact, it jumped from a few thousand carloads in 2005 to almost 400,000 in 2013. We also found out since 2006 there's been 9 crude oil accidents across the country. That will jump up to 10 with today's accident. And for both ethanol and crude oil fatalities, there's been 48 since 2006. But with information also presented at this forum by a CSX representative, it revealed the number of train accidents has actually been reduced by 80% since 1980. But looking at that crude oil, which was the material on the train today, the NTSB chairman addressed it and said it's gone up by 443% in terms of the traffic.
Much of the growth came from a nearly 4-fold increase of crude oil shipments from 2011 to 2012. Moreover, some of this crude oil, such as that originating in the Bakken Formation, may have more volatile properties, which increases the likelihood of a violent fire in the event of a derailment.
She's talking about a violent fire there, and that's similar to what we saw today. I did have a moment to talk with Paul Stansel with the NTSB. He says they are launching a team who will be investigating what happened in Lynchburg. Now, coming up at 5:30, we continue our investigation and look into some of the safety measures that was discussed at last week's forum. Live in the newsroom, Katie Love, WSLS 10.
All right, back to our developing story now. We'll take another live picture at what's happening now in downtown Lynchburg, where a train carrying crude oil derailed and caught fire this afternoon, a massive fireball. About 15 cars are impacted, some of them leaking that oil. The city says that some of the oil has leaked into the James River. The good news is no injuries reported. About 300 people evacuated from the area. And this is a story we're, of course, following very closely. We'll have more for you coming up next on WSLS 10 at 5:30. And the latest from the city of Lynchburg is that drinking water is not impacted either.
And so glad no one was hurt there.
No doubt.
So, Bree, we understand that about a dozen cars derailed. There's still some leaking of that fuel, and now clearly rain coming down for those folks out there trying to clean up the mess.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Karen. Those trains were carrying crude oil, and about 3 to 4 of those trains, the cars rolled into the river, and that's what they're concerned about. They want to test the waters to see if the river is contaminated. Now, this happened around 2 p.m. this afternoon near the Grill Depot. The train was traveling from Chicago to Virginia, and as you mentioned, approximately 15 cars derailed. Now, authorities, they were able to get to the scene pretty quickly, evacuated the area, and they were able to contain the fire, although they say that is still not out right now.
The Department of Environmental Quality is here. There are groups here testing the quality of the atmosphere to make sure that fumes are not a problem. And as far as we know, there were no injuries and nobody seems to be missing.
And I talk with CSX officials, and they say that they are committed to meeting the needs of the community and investigating this to find out exactly what happened and what has caused this train to derail. We'll continue to keep you updated as more information becomes available. For now, we're live in Lynchburg. Bree Jackson, WSLS 10.
All right, thank you, Bree. We'll check back in with you a little bit later. Meanwhile, WSLS 10's Jenna Zipton is also covering this derailment for us, and she's joining us live from the scene. So, Jenna, this happened in a very busy area of downtown Lynchburg. A lot of people saw it with their own eyes. Tell us what you heard from some of those eyewitnesses.
Well, lots of people were downtown, many eating lunch right next door. They say it was scary, unbelievable. They can't believe this happened. And take a look at this video that we shot earlier today. You can see the smoke, the flames kind of subsided after a couple of hours, but there are still 3 train cars in the river, a 4th that looks like it's kind of teetering on the edge right there where the tracks buckled. We can see it from where we are across from the James River, and people just can't believe what they saw.
Night of that train derailment in Lynchburg. We mentioned earlier that Don Hullings sent us some pictures of the derailment. He's worked in downtown Lynchburg for 3 years now. He tells me he watched everything as it was happening this afternoon. I talked to him over the phone about the situation. Listen to what he told me.
It twisted several other cars, and immediately after that there was an explosion, and about 6 cars back, I think is what I counted when I went out and took the pictures, that a huge fireball shot up into the sky that you'll see in the pictures. That was at like 1:55. Looking at it now, it appears that train is either down on the river or all the way down in the back, down the embankment. It's gone. The one that started the initial derailment.
We begin tonight with a developing story in Lynchburg where several agencies continue to work together at the scene of a CSX train derailment in the area of 9th Street. This is Instagram video from the scene earlier this afternoon. Evacuations were forced, but people are now able to come back into the area and get their vehicles. WSLS 10's Bree Jackson has been following this story since it broke. She joins us now live from downtown Lynchburg, kicking off our team coverage tonight. So, Bree, what are crews telling you now?
Well, a lot of it is what you just mentioned, Lindsay, and that's the important part. Crews have opened the streets back up, and they're asking residents or anyone who left their car in this area to come and move their car, and residents are allowed back into the homes that are in this area. But also what I've just been told is that CSX cleanup crews are expected to arrive here by midnight, and they actually plan to have the train derailment cleaned up by close of business tomorrow.
We begin tonight with our continuing coverage out of Lynchburg.
WSLS 10's Bree Jackson joins us live just a few blocks from where that accident happened. She has been there all afternoon and throughout the evening. Bree, please bring us up to date.
Yeah. Well, John, we were actually able to move closer to the scene, and we're right near ground zero, right near the staging area. I don't know if you can see this behind me, but crews are actually bringing in some of that heavy-duty equipment right now to help remove these trains. Now, earlier today, we actually were here when crews were able to move the ends of the train. Now, we're told that the derailment happened in the middle, and so those are the areas that they're focused on, but they were able to move the ends of the train, the cars at the end, so that they could clear up the area that was blocking Concord Turnpike. Now, let me give you some of the facts that we know so far. Approximately 15 cars derailed, and those cars were filled with crude oil. 3 cars went into the water, and it's estimated that each car held about 30,000 gallons of crude oil. Now, this accident caused one of those cars to spill out all the crude oil that it was carrying. So we know that at least one car spilled all the crude oil out. Now, it's too early to tell exactly how much of that crude oil burned off and then how much actually seeped into the water. But what we do know is that the EPA, DEQ, and other hazmat crews are on the scene. Now, the NTSB is investigating this case, and CSX says if all goes well, they should be able to clean up these trains by Thursday evening. But moving forward, there's no telling how long it's going to take to get the crude oil spill. Now, it's important to note that CSX has opened a community outreach center at the Wingate Hotel. Now, that's on Candler's Mountain Road. That will be open from 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. tomorrow for anyone in the community that may be affected by this incident that happened today. So there were no injuries, but there's no telling how long it's going to take for them to figure out a cause of this accident or how much oil actually spilled in the area. But we will continue to keep you covered as more information becomes available. For now, we're live in Lynchburg. Bree Jackson, WSLS 10.
All right, thank you, Bree. Obviously a long day, so this now becomes a story to a certain extent about the environmental impact, and the James River Association has released a statement on the train derailment. The association is alarmed and troubled over the impact to the James River. Pat Culvert, the Upper James River Keeper, says that they are monitoring the situation and says, quote, "We are obviously very concerned about the impacts of this incident on the James River, and we will work to confirm that they are fully addressed and mitigated." And says this is also a time to assess the risks and to see that all necessary actions are taken to ensure that such a valuable natural resource is protected. The James River Association is in contact with Lynchburg city officials as well as state and federal agencies that we just heard Bree talking about to ensure all necessary precautions are taken.